Press the button, my friend.
The Out of Bounds Show is live from the Whiskey 61 Lounge in the Bank Plus studio.
Check it out.
Good morning, the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're streaming live for you on the Out of Bounds radio app, and you can watch the show right now on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. Show is brought to you by the amazing wings and street tacos at Two Brothers Smoked Meats, Stark, Vegas, Mississippi. Also Maroon & Co. That's where you want to go to gear up for basketball and baseball season. Maroon & Co. It's behind Chick-fil-A in Starkville. This is 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Our guests join us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. And we welcome in Scott Padgett. Chris Jans' staff, they're on a five-game winning streak. Huge win at Arkansas. And Scott played at Kentucky, 8-year NBA vet. And he joins us on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Good morning, Scott Padgett. How you doing?
Doing good. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. We wanted to know if you had thought about getting Chris Jans dance lessons.
No, he's doing all right on his own. I think the guys like it better that way.
Oh man, I know y'all were having a lot of fun, and you know how hard it is to win in Bud Walton Arena. You were a player under Patino and Tubby, and when Nolan had it rolling, good grief, and it's still Musselman's done an amazing job. How much fun was that locker room celebration after winning Saturday night?
It was just great because you know how hard the guys have worked to get where we are now. And, like that, it is what it is. It was a quad one game. It's on a road, probably if not the most hostile, one of the most hostile environments in the SEC. So to go in there and play really, really well and still have to like fight off a run while the crowd's like going nuts and everything, and how our guys handled that. It was exciting just for them to be able to come through big in that moment.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. Y'all had control throughout the game, which is big on the road in that kind of spot. And you knew they were going to make a run, and they did. I can't remember. They closed it to 5 a couple of times. They may have even closed it to 4. But talk about the players handling that environment. And even though there were a couple of turnovers, y'all also turned Arkansas over late in the game. But the guys having just enough mettle and moxie to get out of there, Scott.
Well, I think the first thing was that we did a really good job of building a lead. Like you need those kind of things on the road. Whether anybody would ever admit it, the calls are going to be closer on the road for the home team.
Sure.
The home team. I mean, it's just a natural tendency. Human behavior is that referees don't want to get yelled and screamed at. So like you got to build up for those calls. You got to build up for the run when the crowd goes nuts. So like we did a good job of getting that lead. And then I thought we made down the stretch, we made some plays where like if you're playing scared, you don't make them. Cam Matthews' play where he drives the ball hard to the basket and he misses the shot but gets his own rebound, puts it back up. That's an aggressive play. A tentative team is out there trying to dribble the ball around, and now you're leaving it up to free throws and stuff, in which we did a good job making free throws down the stretch. But that play, the play where Shaq looks like he's pulling it out, he brings it back in, and we get the dunk from Tolu. Like it's making smart plays and being aggressive while still, like I say, playing smart throughout the ending. And it wasn't perfect by any means, but we made enough plays down the stretch, and we made those last 6 free throws, 4 by Cam and 2 by Rams that helped put it away.
Yeah, Cam Matthews is for Jans and y'all. He's your kind of your Swiss Army knife. Describe what you see from him and maybe what else he can do the next month or so of the season.
Well, I think, defensively he can guard anybody on the floor no matter who we're playing. He's strong, physical, athletic, quick laterally, and he's got a mindset of wanting to do it. So he can guard anybody. Offensively, like it's funny. The only thing that he doesn't, I feel like, do really, really well on the offensive end is he's got to, continue to work on his jump shot. But he handles the ball well. He actually gets in the lane a lot and jump stops and finds open people. He obviously, when he gets downhill with some momentum, it's you might want to look out because he can go above the rim and finish. So, like, he's kind of one of those, like, at this point, the saying jack of all trades, not necessarily the master of any of them, but jack of all trades, can do a little bit of everything out there. And, we even had games earlier this year when we had 2 point guards out of the lineup, we were playing, Cam at some point guard. So he gives you a lot of luxuries, and, he's a leader on and off the court for our guys, and just has a winning mindset, doesn't care about scoring, just cares about making winning plays.
Scott Padgett, 8 years in the NBA, played for Pitino and Tubby at Kentucky, now with Chris Jans. They're on a 5-game winning streak, and they host Scott's alma mater tomorrow night in a big game, 7:30 at the Hump, and it will be packed, probably their best crowd of the year. There's a little hoops magic in Starkville right now as they're on Joe Lenardi's bubble, last 4 in, and they've got some really, really good wins and some opportunities down the stretch. What you and Coach Jans got hooked up here in the last year, you've been under amazing coaches, including Pitino and Jerry Sloan. I mean, Hall of Famers. What is it about Jans that impresses you the most, Scott?
Well, like, I think when you're in this business, it's all about, like, relationships, and you want to, put yourself in position to have relationships with great people, great coaches. And, like, I've been a head coach before, and I felt like I was always a pretty good. I did a pretty good job on the offensive end of the floor. And I'll be honest with you, one of the big reasons why I wanted to be involved here was learn from Jans and his defensive mentality and what he, does going into it. And for me, from that standpoint, it's just been phenomenal. I've learned so much. I mean, I remember it was funny. I walked in and I'm like 2 days into practice, and like, we play a style that's different than almost everybody. There's 7 or 8 teams that play similar, but in the country, but there's nobody, I think, that plays exactly like us. And 2 days in, I'm like, I was a pressing guy, and kind of what we do in the half court is like pressing in the half court. You're forcing people to traps and things like that, and rotate. And I'm like, why did I never think of this? Like this is genius. Like, why did I ever think of this? Because pressing, you got to cover 94 feet. In the half court, you got to cover half that. And with the athletes and stuff that we have, it's been very successful for us. I think we're 7th in the country in turnover percentage on that end of the floor. And for a guy who used to like to try to turn people over in the full court, it makes just so much more sense to what we do. And so I've learned a lot from him. I think it's one of those things, having been a head coach, I think we bounce things off of each other, and he as a head coach, it's your job to take ideas and run with them, or say maybe not right now, but maybe later, or
Sure.
No, I don't like that. So my job is just keep trying to bounce ideas off of them, and it's his job to make the final call. And I think he's done a really good job of that. I think one of the most impressive things that I've seen from him is keeping this team moving forward when we were struggling.
Right.
We could, to get to this 5-game, winning streak, we had to fight through a 8 out of 9, the bad way. So a lot of teams collapsed during that, and he kept this team fighting and motivated, and that's a testament to him, and it's a testament to them as well, as far as the players. But just been a great experience for me.
He is Scott Padgett, played at Kentucky, 8-year NBA vet. On Chris Jans' staff. They've got a 5-game winning streak, and they host Kentucky tomorrow night. So, Scott, who are you more surprised with that's kind of turned the corner? Y'all needed some help on the perimeter, Davis, Shaq Moore. Are you more surprised with one of their play, especially on the offensive end?
I don't know if I'm surprised by it, but, like, obviously Shaq during this run has made a big jump for our team. He started starting the Alabama game, and I think offensively our tempo's been, a little bit better. We've been a little more aggressive attacking the lanes where we've got 2 guards that can get in that lane, and really 3 when you throw DJ in there. But like they've been able to make plays for themselves and others, and I think they've just complemented each other really well. And Shaq shot the ball pretty well during this run, so like that now we've got Shaq and Rams who are able to make shots out there, and it opens up the floor for the inside, opens up the floor more for Tolu and Will when they're in the paint.
Other than them being insanely talented, like they always are, as you know, being a Kentucky alum and a national champion there, what is your number one concern with the Wildcats coming in?
I think I have a 1A and 1B, transition defense and then us rebounding the ball. Those are big time strengths for theirs. When they guard and make you miss, they want to get out and run and score early. And they have the ability to score at the rim or from the 3-point line in transition. So that's always tough is when, you play some teams and they're all running to the 3-point line. And so that and you kind of, get to that area, and other teams are all attacking the basket. Well, they can do both. So that's a tough order in transition. And then obviously they got one of the top rebounders probably in the last 10 years of college basketball on their team, who averages almost 6 offensive rebounds by himself. But then, you've got Toppin and, a couple of those other guys who get in there and get on the board. So we got to eliminate their second chance points. We got to eliminate their transition points and make it a half-court fight. And if that's the case, I like our chances.
Scott Padgett, assistant coach under Chris Jans, 8-year NBA vet, played at Kentucky. He's joining us on Out of Bounds 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. All right, I got to switch gears with you and talk a little Rick Pitino for a second. In 1987, I went to the Final Four in New Orleans. Providence was in that Final Four. Syracuse, UNLV, Indiana. I had already caught the college hoops bug, and Billy D was his guard, and they probably had no business there, but that's just how good Pitino was. When was were you starstruck the first time you met Rick Pitino when he was recruiting you, Scott?
I met him when I was in 8th grade. I worked as an usher at Churchill Downs during Derby Week. And on Oaks Day, I sat him in his Millionaire's Row seat. Actually, I'd be at the top of the steps, and whoever comes up the escalator or whatever, you walk them to their seat. And when I was in 8th grade, I told him I was going to play for him. At the time, I was probably 5'11", 8th grader. He wasn't thinking much about it, I'm sure. And the next time that I talked to him in person was on my in-home visit, and I told him about that day. Of course, he didn't remember it, but when I was growing up, I was a huge Kentucky fan. I modeled my game in high school after. And I wasn't anywhere near as good as him, but after Jamal Mashburn, because he was a 4-man, played for Kentucky. I was going to be a 4-man probably going in college, and I wanted to play for them. So I had my coach play, with Pitino, you had to press with the man on the ball, and I had my coach put in the press so I could be on the ball and press like them. And I got the rebound. I dribbled to the length of the court. I made passes. I shot threes. I tried to do everything I could to be to play at the University of Kentucky, because he was at the time, Pitino was, Michael Jordan was my favorite player. My next favorite person in sports was Rick Pitino.
Sure.
And to be honest with you, and I mean he doesn't even know that, but I knew in high school I wanted to be a coach because I wanted to be like him. I just thought he was cool. He's this. Well-dressed, obviously genius on the court coaching. And that's what I wanted to do. And I tell everybody I was lucky enough. I got derailed by the NBA, kept me from getting into coaching sooner. I was starstruck in every way you could think of. even in my recruitment, like I talked to him twice before I committed. Like it was the easiest recruitment of all time.
Wow. All right, I got to ask you this. Scott Padgett on the Out of Bounds show, MSU Hoops, played at Kentucky under Pitino and Tubby. What you were a McDonald's All-American out of Louisville, Kentucky, so obviously you were really good. Was there any doubt you were getting that offer, or did you know that, Scott?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, my recruitment was 3 weeks long. They didn't start recruiting me until June going into my senior year. By that time I'd had, a really good list of schools: Kansas, Florida State, Florida, Notre Dame, Purdue, a long list of schools. And the call hadn't came yet. And so it wasn't always guaranteed, not by any means.
What was it? I want to fast forward here. If you just got a couple more minutes, if you got to go, let us know. I know you are having meeting all the time and watching film and so on. What was it? Jerry Sloan, Hall of Famer, unbelievable coach, underrated. Only thing he didn't do was win a title, but he was amazing with the Jazz, and his reputation in the X's and O's arena is second to none. What was it like to play for Jerry Sloan?
Jerry was like old school as old school gets, like hard nosed, didn't take anything from anybody, referees, other players on other teams, his own players, whatever. Like, if you would have told me that Jerry Sloan got in a fight with anybody that he came across to in the NBA, it wouldn't have surprised me. Like he was just old school, and that's how he was as a player, old school scrapper. He's a 6'4" guy guarding Wilt Chamberlain. That's how his teams were. Like they fought and scrapped, and then you had one of the best combos of all time in Stockton Malone, and I think what was awesome about that situation is just got to learn from so many great people. Like I remember my first 2 years, I didn't play that much, and just sitting over there, I was a better player just from sitting over there watching Stockton Malone and listening to what Jerry Sloan said. And so that my third year, when I got my opportunity, I was so much better than I was when I was a rookie.
Right.
And I really didn't get it from the playing time. I got it from really listening and watching. But there's so much I learned about footwork in the post and everything from watching Carl. He was a guy that really had one move, but dominated low post basketball because of his footwork. And then Stockton, best vision ever, just could see everything.
Incredible.
And, 6'1", not overly fast, couldn't jump, but could see, literally behind his head. It was phenomenal to get to play with those two.
Last one. Jordan was gone. I know he came back to the Wizards. You caught Kobe. LeBron doesn't come in till 2003. Duncan's in his prime. There's some other people I'm missing. Best player you ever played against in the NBA?
That I actually guarded?
No, just that you that was on the court.
I'll be honest with you, like his prime years got cut down because of injury, but like Tracy McGrady was as talented as anybody I've ever, and I got to play with and against him.
Nice.
But like, imagine, he's a little bit shorter, but imagine Durant, but faster, jump a little higher, he had all of it. And he was like, when I played with him, he was getting 7.5 assists along with the 30.
Wow.
Like when he came to Houston, it became less about ISO because he had always ISO'd and got 30 a game in Orlando, and more about like playing within a team system because we had Yao Ming too. So it became more and more efficient, shot a higher percentage, took better shots. When he got doubled, found the open man. I was a big time recipient of him, because of course my man's going to leave me to help on Tracy McGrady. What's the option? Scott Padgett, Tracy McGrady. You're going to leave Scott Padgett over. So I had two of my better years playing alongside of him, but could also guard. Like I remember in the playoffs where we put him on Dirk Nowitzki, who's 6'11", and he actually played him really, really well. So like I think he could have been in the conversation for, one of those top 10 all time had he not had his back injuries and things like that after a couple years in Houston. But the guy I actually, I can't say not Kobe though. I mean, like Tracy's up there, but Kobe was just another level when it came to work ethic, demeanor. I mean, he was a killer. He was just a killer. Like he wanted to dominate you every day, whether it was in practice, in the weight room, conditioning, shooting game. The closest to Michael probably, ever been.
That was fun. Scott Padgett, Hell State basketball, part of Jan's staff, a big piece of the puzzle. They're on a roll, 5-game winning streak. He played at Kentucky, 8-year NBA vet. And they host Kentucky tomorrow night at 7:30. They're on Joe Lunardi's Last Four In, so they're in the hunt for an NCAA tournament bid. Scott, thanks so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot. We're that way, Hell State.
There you go. Humphrey Coliseum tomorrow night will be packed as they host Calipari and the Cats. And Kentucky's coming off back-to-back losses, so we'll see. What Kentucky will we get, and can Mississippi State keep the magic going after 5 straight wins? 1 non-conference against TCU, 4 conference wins, Blake, and
it's pretty impressive.
Heck of an opportunity for Jans and his team. Tolu, Cam Matthews, Deshaun Davis, Shaq Moore, all of them. DJ, I think you need DJ to take those open looks tomorrow. Thought he was a little passive Saturday night, but he's obviously playing some good basketball. He was coming off a hell of a offensive performance the game before, 5 of 6 from three-point land. So for me, by the way, that was cool.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You weren't as into it because you were younger. When Rick Pitino joined the SEC for me, and because I love basketball, and I know 95% of this show is football. I'd already, again, watched him in the Final Four. And Mashburn, who Padgett referenced, was one of my favorite players of all time in the SEC. Charles Barkley is my favorite. But I loved Mashburn. Got to see him play live. Got to see him on TV. And Scott Padgett played and was recruited by Rick Pitino, and I just think that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. And they're on it. Mississippi State basketball is in an interesting spot. Not very many teams probably had a 5-game losing streak followed up by a 5-game winning streak in the same season.
And that's a credit to Chris Jans, and Padgett even said the players.
The coaching staff.
Tolu and those guys, I think Cam Matthews, maybe the dog in the locker room.
Yeah.
But they just refused to lay down. They could have, and they didn't. Thanks for listening to the show. Mike Detillier went heavy New Orleans Saints quarterback. He dropped Derek Carr. If you don't get him, you got Baker Mayfield. That could be an issue. Scott Padgett was awesome, sharing stories on Jans and Rick Pitino and Jerry Sloan for me. And we're going to have another interview after the show, and then we'll keep rolling. Tomorrow, we'll jump into college baseball with Bianco, the reigning national champion, and Lamona's something to prove. So there you go. Out of Bounds. Check out Apple Podcasts. Search Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds if you missed anything. Apple Podcast, Out of Bounds with Bo Bounds.